everyone, welcome back to Beyond the Veil Tarot and Astrology. My name is Candice Marie. Thanks for joining me. I'll be your astrologer this week. This is going to be the astro weather for April 16th through the 23rd. I hope you guys are doing well. Happy Sunday. Hopefully your guys' weekend has gone beautifully. We have a very, very busy week ahead astrologically. There's a lot of things going on. So before I even jump into this, make sure you click the button below. You are subscribed. Give me a thumbs up. That way I know that you guys can see the videos and you're going to be updated when we have new videos coming out through the next week or two. Equally, a lot of the transits that I'm going to be discussing today, like the solar eclipse in Aries, the Mercury retrograde, all of these videos have already been made. So for some of you guys, some of these topics are going to be a review. Those of you guys who have not already seen those videos, if you want like an hour-long deep dive with tarot and me talking about the 12 signs, please check that out, or check out my April horoscopes for this month. Okay, so we've got a lot going on. We're going to be taking a look, obviously, at the transits day by day, but major headlines would be this is the beginning of eclipse season. We're going to be seeing the very first eclipse for 2023, and it's an important one because it's at a pivotal degree. It is going to be very close in proximity to the North Node, which is about our future, our destiny, stepping into that, what we're growing, right? But it's all as a result of the actions that we're taking. In the sign of Aries, it's all about bravery, and it's all about the willingness to be more optimistic, about really taking the reins in a certain area of our life and initiating something new. Jupiter is invisible during this eclipse. He's smiling down and kind of looking at everything that's going on, saying that the future can be very bright, but it will also amplify a lot of the emotions and the feelings of this eclipse, and it's all in a square to Pluto and Aquarius. We're also going to see just shortly after the solar eclipse, the sun and the moon ingress into Taurus, so we're going to be seeing Taurus season begin. Huge shift from having all these planets in Aries to eventually later this week seeing a stellium of planets in Taurus. So it's going to be a little wild. We're going to feel that distinct shift from cardinal fire to fixed earth. In theory, that will stabilize things, so that's the good news. And to those of you guys who are experiencing your birthday this week, you're having your birthday right around the time of a solar eclipse. So you really want to consider getting a reading or taking a look at that solar return chart. Now, just after the eclipse, we're also going to see Mercury's going to turn retrograde. So there's a whole video on that, but I'll touch on what to be mindful of, what to look out for this week as this retrograde begins, although we've been in the shadow for the better part of the last week. Now, when Mercury retrogrades, we do see communication issues, things slow down, there's more traffic, or there's more like construction on the roadways, problems with gadgets, issues with contracts. And in the sign of Taurus, ruled by Venus, it's all going to be about money, resources, banking, values, okay? It's also partially tied into the eclipse that we're going to be having 2 weeks from now, which will be the bookend eclipse that's going to be the partner to the solar eclipse in Aries. It'll be a very intense lunar eclipse in Scorpio. So that's the video you guys are going to get on Tuesday. I'm putting that together right now. And then also, fun fact, Uranus is now returning back to 18 degrees. Now, that's not anything really exciting. There's nothing really to that in terms of the degree itself. But now that Uranus has gone retrograde and returned back to 18 degrees, it is picking up some of that very volatile energy from that North Node Uranus-Mars conjunction that we saw in the summer of 2022. So if you think back to things that were dramatically changing or kind of improving or destabilizing, fluctuations financially, or just in terms of our own resources, we're seeing that return. So just keep an eye out for that. I think it's interesting that Mercury is stopping short of that conjunction to Uranus. It's going to get all the way up to about 15 degrees and then retrograde. So think about what has been seeded since last summer. You want to look at where Taurus is in your chart, not just because of this particular placement of Uranus, but there's a retrograde there too. And we are going to see lots of planets that are going to be going through Taurus, making oppositions to the next eclipse at the beginning of May. So I mean, man, there's a lot going on this week. So make sure you guys check out those other videos. They're really helpful in giving you some insight as to how that's going to play out for you guys personally. As a reminder, I'm a Western astrologer, so a lot of my predictions are going to be based off of Western whole sign. But you can always use the Placidus prediction. So I'm a Placidus user myself. That's what I do for my one-on-one clients. So as you're listening to some of those videos, you may have to look at, well, where is 15 degrees of Taurus. That's the retrograde in your chart. Where is 29 degrees of Aries? That's going to be the solar eclipse in your chart specifically. So you might have to listen to two signs to get that insight, okay? All right, so let's jump into it. Happy Sunday. Hopefully you guys are enjoying your morning. Some uncomfortable things kind of going on this morning. So it's really all going to be how you guys decide to utilize this energy. So we woke up this morning with the sun, obviously coming to the late degrees of Aries. So we're still feeling that sense of things building, coming into the solar eclipse energy. Technically, when the moon is the sign behind the solar eclipse, we're coming into this balsamic phase. So you're going to feel like today, really through about Monday, going into Tuesday, we're wrapping things up. We're closing things out. There are dramatic kind of endings and things that we're kind of fleshing out right now. The moon in Pisces has us more introspective, emotional, sensitive, needing more rest, more kind of recuperation. And it's coming into contact earlier this morning with Saturn. So there's this emotional hardening, right? Or barriers or boundaries. There can be also issues expressing ourselves or being able to kind of communicate with other people. Because the moon-Saturn connection represents like this blockage that's taking place emotionally. Saturn is seen in astrology as like a vessel or like a boundary or a wall or a limitation. So some of us may feel like we're kind of between a rock and a hard place emotionally today. The moon is trining out to the south node, so it's saying, okay, we're making the difficult decisions to kind of wrap things up, close things out. And then we will also see the moon come into a trine with Mars in Cancer. So interesting stuff going on. You know, the moon is going to be here today into tomorrow. Definitely yet another Sunday that may feel a little bit easier in terms of resting and recuperating, finding our quiet space, meditating, relaxing, you know, hydrating and staying by water. Especially because a lot of us are going to be processing emotions and we're going to want to feel like we want to do that in private. Now that moon-Saturn connection is also coming into a square with Venus in the sign of Gemini. So this is also kind of indicating like there's something off in terms of challenges with relating or being open to other people, because Venus is generally, especially in the sign of Gemini, wants to communicate, wants to share, wants to move around. And this is a square that's taking place within mutable signs. So we're realizing that some things are changing in terms of values and relationships, and we need more time to reflect and kind of recuperate or gather our feelings or our thoughts. Some of us may feel just with the, you know, Venus-Saturn square that's still kind of playing out that there's tough lessons in love or financial things at the moment, that there are difficulties in regards to being able to have clarity also in certain relationships or investment or financial matters. But I think a lot of us are going to struggle today in regards to just feeling open to sharing our feelings and our emotions. We need a little bit more time to process. Now, like I said, thankfully, because I'm all about making lemonade, we're going to see the moon trine Mars, and the moon is kind of picking up on this grand water trine. So great time to really like tap in, listen to your intuition, move through the emotions. I think a lot of people are going to be getting a little distant or a little private because they're feeling like they need to protect themselves emotionally, or they can be getting a little bit more emotionally defensive. It's important that you guys are checking in with yourselves emotionally and kind of feeling this out and making sure that you're not icing other people out or isolating yourself, that any actions that you're taking are taking your emotions and your feelings into consideration, because that's going to be a huge piece of the puzzle for the next 2.5 years with Saturn in Pisces. These are the real only aspects that you're going to see throughout the day. Not too much else is kind of going on other than lunar aspects. You will see the moon continue to keep moving through Pisces, and once it gets into the afternoon hours, it's going to start picking up on sextiles to Mercury and also Uranus. So we're feeling like, you know, hey, maybe it was a good thing that we took a little time today to rest and recuperate and start integrating the physical or the financial changes we need to make. I'm a huge fan of the sextiles between Pisces and Taurus. I feel like it's helping us better understand what physical shifts we need to make, what investments we need to make, what changes with our food, what changes with our bodies, and how to better listen to our intuition or reflect in meditation to be able to feel like we can make some of the changes or focus on building some of the things that we would like to build. So this is like a vision-based day of like, okay, how do I want to see the next couple of days play out? What am I creating? What are my intentions? What are my manifestations? And it's going to help us also start to prepare and get ready for this Mercury retrograde. When the moon is in Pisces, we may notice that we have more themes of altered states. So it could be that people are getting, high and drinking and partying, but it could also be that people are raising their vibration through consciously taking time to pause, reflect, meditate, unwind, hypnotism, mysticism, crystal balls, tarot, any kind of journeying, dream interpretation. These are more kind of higher octave ways of being able to work with this energy. And I think it's wonderful because it's going to help us make better decisions during the Mercury retrograde and really pause and reflect so we know how to navigate making the physical shifts in the waking world. All afternoon, you're just going to see that sextile that's going to be playing out. And then you're going to start to lose the trine to the South Node and also to Mars. So over the evening, we'll watch the moon continue to go through the sign of Pisces. And then we wake up on Monday, the 17th. And in the morning, the moon is still in Pisces, but it's coming into conjunctions with Neptune. So it's like a morning where a lot of people are like, wish I could have slept in, feeling still kind of squirrely, still kind of needing my space. And as the moon comes into conjunction with Neptune, it can be extremely spiritual and very insightful. We could feel our intuition just kind of continue to pick up on everything, right? Because Pisces is like a sponge. So when it's coming into conjunction with Neptune, it can be absorbing things. So be mindful of what you're absorbing. I would say that to anybody all week, just considering that we're going to have a solar eclipse, but also the fact that we're going to have a retrograde in the part of the chart that, a sign that deals with what do we possess? What do we buy? What are we eating, right? What are we holding on to? So the magic actually of these sextiles between Pisces and Taurus is where it's actually showing us that water can soften things, right? Like emotionally opening up and being more sensitive and empathic can actually soften a lot of the changes that are happening in Taurus. As an example, you guys look at a river, right? And you see all like the river rocks and the stones. They were not always that smooth. Like they became smooth after years and years and years of tumbling through the river or the stream and being able to get that fine polish on it as it goes against all of the other kind of, pebbles and the sand and anything else that's in like a riverbed. If you look at shells or rocks on the beach, same thing. It's not after going through periods of storm or pressure from the water that things become smooth. So what I like about the relationship with water and earth is that water has the ability to cut through earth and to smooth it out, to soften all of the edges, to teach it how to be grounded. It also nourishes earth and it allows earth to be able to grow. So what we're learning in the beginning of the week is that it's okay to be emotional when there's changes that are happening, and we have to kind of get outside of our comfort zone. So constantly checking in with our intuition, our emotions is a necessary part of the process of kind of roughening some of these edges. Also this same day, we see that Mercury is getting ready to station. So Mercury will be retrograding at 15 degrees. So once Mercury hits that 15-degree mark, it's going to start stationing, which basically means it's slowing down. It's already slowing down, but it's going to be stationing later in the afternoon. Anybody who has any planetary placements, specifically right around, let's say 14, 16 degrees of Taurus, sun, moon, rising, right? If that is your natal Mercury, if you have any other personal planets there, pay attention, because when a planet is stationing, it's basically either slowing down and getting ready to reevaluate and change direction, or it's getting ready to become aware of something really important. And you have to look at where Taurus is in your chart. Now, this same day, in the PM hours, we're going to see the moon start moving away from that conjunction with Neptune. So we start to kind of feel the moon come out of its shell, and then boom, the moon is going to enter into Aries on Monday night, the 17th. So we are then coming into the eclipse period. To be honest with you, between the Mercury retrograde and the fact that the eclipses have really been felt for the better part of the last month, We've been in this energy for the immediate last like 10 days. So some of you guys are already feeling it. You're already seeing some of the intense stuff that's playing out. It is a combination of both of these two transits happening at the same time. But the moon is going to make a number of aspects before it comes into the solar eclipse. And I think that's what's so fascinating as this week goes on. When we shift from the last sign of the zodiac, 28, 29 degrees of Pisces, which is mutable water, which is kind of feeling things out and taking its space and dreaming and kind of like checked out and sometimes isolating, to 0 degrees of Aries. When this lunar shift happens on Monday night, I anticipate a lot of people are going to feel it. So just know we're already kind of coming into the eclipse, because this is the same sign that we're going to have the eclipse in. If you guys remember last month, the very first new moon that we had in Aries was at 0 degrees, and 0 degrees of the cardinal signs are very potent degrees because they're on what we call the world axis points. So when we see 0 degrees of Aries, it's like something is initiated, something is born, some decision is made, something very significant kind of takes place. So I think that may be the beginning process of starting to see what's coming up from the eclipse. Aries is a sign that deals with the self, right? Action, motivation, anger, war, frustration, but also power, personal awareness, what we initiate, what we kind of get started. So there can be a sense of feeling as that ingress happens on Monday night, like, okay, this thing is going to happen. So like, what actions am I taking to kind of like seize the moment? Now, as that happens, one of the first aspects that it's going to make is it's going to form an exact sextile to Pluto in Aquarius. So it's interesting because Pluto also is getting ready to go retrograde in a very short period of time. Actually, by the time we have the next eclipse, Pluto will be retrograde. So that moon sextile Pluto is interesting energy because it's kind of saying like, this is how my goals are changing. So this is what I have to kind of take action on. So here I go. And this is a very fearless moon. I think that the transits with the moon leading up to the solar eclipse is super wild. You guys are going to go through a whole range of emotions. So just be prepared for that. And the moon will continue to keep moving through Aries over the evening. Then we're going to wake up on the 18th on Tuesday. And the moon starts making some other aspects. So one of the first things that it's going to do is it's going to start coming into a square with Mars. So we've got the moon at 12 degrees, Mars at 12 degrees. This is that hard 90-degree angle where they're going to have some friction. They're going to fight. But we've got the moon in a Mars-ruled sign, Aries. We've got Mars in a moon-ruled sign, Cancer. So there is some mutual reception going on, meaning even though they're in friction to one another and they're not making the easiest aspect, they're both saying the same damn thing. So moon in Aries is very much about impatience, and sometimes it can be about getting moody and reactionary or needing to follow one's own emotional instincts or drives. And then the Mars in Cancer transit is very moody and sensitive, and it is about protecting what you feel like you need to protect, especially in a domestic sense. So there seems to be conflict between what my intuition is saying and what I'm instinctually feeling like I should be doing, right? What I should be nurturing, Mars in Cancer. But that moon in Aries is like, what about my own personal freedom? What about my feelings? What about my needs? And so they're coming into friction with one another. It will pass. The moon moves very quickly, but as soon as we start to see that square happen, we start seeing then the moon come into conjunction with Chiron, and that's going to be happening in the evening on Tuesday. So then we're picking up the wounding of, well, this is the emotional sacrifices I'm making. These are the emotional pains that I'm feeling. This is what I'm processing and kind of going through. And it can be on a very personal level. So it feels like there's like a tug of war between these two themes. It can be something that's also just very emotionally overwhelming. I got to tell you guys, like, angry feelings and conflict between these personal needs of home and family versus, what you want is just going to be a theme. And it'll play out differently in all of your guys' charts. So you need to look at where Aries and where Cancer is. On Wednesday, like, the heat is on, okay? Because, it's bringing tension with that moon coming into conjunction with Chiron. Aries is personal instincts, conflict and anger, but also it's empowerment and action. So I've been encouraging everybody to take a look at where are there so many strong feelings and emotions coming up, right? I mean, this energy is screaming like angry, crying, and frustration, and fighting, and breaking down. But where you start to see that emotional tension and where you're getting an emotional reaction is showing you perhaps what you should be fighting for, not fighting against, because there can be a lot of decisions that are going to be made with the emotions. And then when the eclipse comes in at that pivotal 29 degrees, it's going to be like now or never. So Tuesday night feels a little intense for me. And that's going to then take us into Wednesday morning. So we're waking up on Wednesday the 19th. And typically I would say things get a little better, but you're going to see, because we're really within the time of the eclipse, like tensions are all super high. Somewhere in the late morning, depending on where you are, the next lunar aspect that the moon is going to make is a conjunction to Jupiter. So in theory, when we see the Moon-Jupiter conjunction, it's feeling emotionally excited and optimistic and hopeful and very sensitive, right? Because Jupiter is like a magnifying glass. He's going to magnify whatever he's touching. So there can be a sense of kind of wrestling with something on the 18th. And then when we wake up on the morning on Wednesday, on the 19th, there's this sense of being like, you know what, maybe I can do it, and maybe it is possible, and maybe, you know, it's all about how I look at things. And so Moon Jupiter can be about expanding our emotional capabilities, expanding our home, expanding our family. It can be about the decision to pick up and pack your bags and move to another place. It could be, you know, you actively going and looking for a new home, or just learning more about your own emotional needs, right? And being that this is taking place all within a Mars sign is taking action to improve or expand our own personal lives, right? The moon can be about our emotions and our domestic zone, but it is coming into contact with the sun, which is also going to be about our passion, our desires, and also action out in the world. What I like about this eclipse is that Jupiter is invisible. So like I said, when we see the eclipse happen at 29 degrees, Jupiter is hitting 23. So it won't be until mid-May. And then again, we're going to see this in, what is it? It's going to be mid-May when Jupiter changes degrees. And then July when the North Node hits 29. We'll see more blessings that are going to come from Jupiter that's being seated in this moment. We just can't see it yet. So it's almost like there's a secret, right? There's something that we know that's coming positively in the future, that we're optimistic about, that we're thinking about, that we're really emotionally kind of connected to, but we're not going to see that thing show up, or we're not going to see that thing grow until about May, and then again in July. And so the fact that Jupiter is hiding things is like this blessing. And I think as the moon comes through here, there's going to be this sense of being like, okay, I feel good about what I'm taking action on and what I'm initiating and what I'm actually going to do. So it does require some kind of personal action. You know, the good luck is not just going to show up. It's really about kind of saying, okay, you know, here goes nothing. I'm going to take a leap of faith, right? Jupiter in Aries, and just see how it plays out. And then hours later, we have the solar eclipse in Aries, and that's going to be at 29 degrees. So we had one new moon in Aries last month. This is now the second new moon in this cycle, which is rare. It's also 29 degrees. So it's pulling off of kind of this new beginning, right? Solar eclipse, new beginning, new actions that we need to do suddenly before we really fully move into the Taurus area of our chart. So as I talked in the eclipse video, I was like, look, you're going to have to do both things. There's going to be actions that take place in Aries that's initiating and making it possible for us to reap a lot of the rewards within Taurus. Keep in mind, guys, when eclipses happen, the sun and the moon are eclipsing, right? So not everything is completely visible. There can be lots of sudden action. I see more people have crisis also right around the time of eclipses. Within about a week or two of an eclipse, it's like this thing is going on and something is starting or something is ending. And this is the first eclipse for 2023. It's also the first eclipse in the series of the eclipses that will be taking place in Aries and Libra. So it's initiating this theme of what do I do? Who am I? What do I fight for? And then Libra, who are we together? How can we mediate? You know, what do we make changes in terms? How do we make changes in terms of relationships and that give and take? So if you're somebody who has any prominent placements in Aries or Libra or the cardinal rising signs, you guys are really going to start to feel the pressure here of this particular eclipse. Now, when this happens, you know, with the eclipse being at a pivotal 29 degree, that is a degree that's associated on one hand with Leo, which is about children and the heart of the matter and what we love and drama, but also romance and our own personal desires or talent. So some of these themes may kind of play out in regards to that. And we do see dramatic world events happen with solar and lunar eclipses, but solar eclipses are more action oriented. And being that we have an exalted sun in Aries, Jupiter in Aries, and both of these in a square to Pluto, I talk about in my eclipse video that it's likely to have a really dramatic impact on power and control structures. You know, potentially a leader, right? When we see a solar eclipse square Pluto, we're definitely feeling threatening energy or some kind of tension that's building where we're feeling like power is being taken away or dictated or determined by other people. So there is this sense when the eclipse comes in that because of Pluto's recent entrance into Aquarius, it's actually prompting and creating some of these changes that are going to be going down. 29 degrees can also be associated with Saturn. So this is what we consider to be like a now or never anaretic degree. Saturn represents the finale or kind of really wrapping something up. The third decan of Aries is a decan that is associated with Jupiter. So it has this very expansive, what are we learning, good luck, worldly perspective. And 29 degrees of Aries can be about war, action, conflict, and just feeling like we have to pull the trigger in a situation. It is also a sign that deals with, you know, military. It deals with soldiers. It deals with individuals, and it's at a degree that also deals with the heart. So I think that this eclipse is really waking a lot of people up right now and having them ask themselves, like, what is it that I really want? What do I really love? What could I create? And what talent do I possess to be able to make a difference or make a change in the world? And there's going to be some needing to overcome fear because of the square to Pluto. Now, when the sun and moon square Pluto, it's going to be less than a degree. If you guys see this, it's going to be like 29 degrees and change. So it'll be less than 1 degree of a square to Pluto in Aquarius. Sun and moon, conscious and unconsciously working through fear and power struggles. And because these eclipses bring new energies, the key is to just get out there and do something, get active, right? I don't really recommend during eclipses really pivotal life changes that day. Because not everything is clear, and you guys are going to see less than 48 hours later, then we're going to have a Mercury retrograde that's going to begin. So I could definitely see some people going, I'm going to pull the trigger and buy this house or make this investment or make this dramatic life change. And I would say, like, just slow your roll. Let's see the next eclipse that kind of plays out. Let's see what happens over the next 2 weeks with that eclipse and also the retrograde. But definitely we're gearing up and we're getting ready to initiate and make some pretty dramatic life changes. In 2 weeks, we will see that May 5th lunar eclipse in Scorpio. It'll be at 14 degrees, and anything that happens between the solar eclipse and the lunar eclipse is like anything goes. You know, surgery, getting married, making major life decisions, you know, quitting jobs, deciding you're moving cross country. It may happen. You guys may come to these realizations that there's something new that's about to emerge. But to me, the retrograde that's going to happen later this week is kind of signifying, okay, this thing is coming. How do we afford it? Where do we move our resources? What physical shifts do we have to make before this thing kind of takes place? So there's some other pieces that kind of need to kind of come together at the moment. Get quiet, get still, you know, just be mindful that this is an eclipse that because of the squares to Pluto, there can be some life or death situations. I don't say that to scare you, but definitely not an eclipse that I would recommend doing anything surgically. Obviously, I'm not a doctor, but if you're in a situation where you have to do something and it's critical, obviously you got to do what you got to do, but I would just take it easy and try to find time to ground out your energy, because the 19th and the 20th, because of the continuing transits with the sun and the moon coming into Taurus and then squaring Pluto, is going to be rather intense. So that'll be taking place in the evening. So if you guys are like, woo, I want to do my, you know, my new moon rituals, I would be like, wait. Let's wait a little bit. Let's wait until at least like the 20th, when The sun is in Taurus, the moon is in Taurus, and maybe we're starting to see the moon come out of the square with Pluto and sextile Saturn. So I would be saying, okay, do it Thursday morning, right? So on Thursday morning when we're waking up, we see that we're now in Taurus season. The sun is ingressed into Taurus. It'll be there for the next few weeks. It's getting really close to the North Node, which is talking about actively, physically pursuing our destiny. And the North Node and the moon are coming into connection. And the moon is exalted in Taurus. Holy frickin' Taurus stellium in the skies, guys. The world is going to be talking very much from this eclipse all the way through mid-May, all about what's going on financially. Okay, that's all you guys are going to hear about. On one hand, you know, the sun and the moon coming into connection with the North Node in Taurus, we may see certain things skyrocket. Certain investments that people have made, we might see more money flooding into certain banking systems. We may also hear a lot more about inflation. I think everybody's standing around waiting to hear that R word that everybody already knows that we're kind of in, but we'll see. That's also when we're going to see the sun and the moon square Pluto exactly. So it'll be at 0 degrees, and 0 degrees are the purest form. So that sun and moon in Taurus, I like with the next to the North Node. I feel like it's very grounded and reliable, but it's teaching us, right, within the Taurus kingdom, unless you have it, unless you possess it, it's not yours. So if you can't eat it, if you can't physically spend it and hold it in your hand, if you can't physically trade it and hold it in your hand, you don't have it. So I'm going to keep telling everybody, please listen. The last 10 days of April is very chaotic. With the Mercury retrograde in Taurus conjunct Uranus and the moon showing up, we're going to find out that certain financial systems are failing, that people are not going to be able to transact, to move money, that people are not going to be able to physically withdraw things. We're also going to see a flood of money going into certain investments in parts of the market. So we're going to see things suddenly skyrocket. So it depends on where your resources are, right? Taurus is about food. It's about agriculture. It can be about also cannabis. It can be about, I'm watching like what might happen with natural gas, looking at Mercury coming into conjunction with Uranus and where there may be, you know, a sudden opportunity for something like that to run. But it could also be metals, right? It could be a lot of things. And Uranus is extremely destabilizing. So we may also hear that there is some eruption or earthquake or volcanic eruption or something that's really prominent. But it can also be, you know, rocking and rattling news about the banking system and anything also in regards to bonds. But 0 degrees of the fixed signs, they don't want to change. So I think we're really going to see the eclipse continue to kind of reverberate out to the 20th. And all of them being at 0 degrees makes me feel like this is going to be a dramatic turning point where Taurus energy is really super strong with all those planets there. It's about life, pleasure, money, abundance, beauty, stability, resources. And Aquarius is group networks, tech, and systems. So we're going to be finding that people are finding new ways to come about wealth. And that wealth is actually on the verge of being redeveloped or reworked. Are we wealthy in a sense of a state of mind, right? With Mercury and Taurus, I think we're looking at, you know, ways that we can diversify and be able to overcome some of the challenges of feeling like we're limited. So that's going to be pretty much all day. You'll see the moon continue to keep swinging through Taurus. And it's coming up on a sextile to Saturn. So it's also saying that because we've been listening to our intuition and meditating and kind of reflecting on things, we're more so prepared for some of the shifts that are coming. Moon will continue to move through Taurus into the evening on the 20th on Thursday. And then as we wake up on Friday, okay, so it's going to be very early Friday morning that the moon is going to come into conjunction with Uranus, okay, 15 degrees, and then it will retrograde. Mercury will retrograde with the moon. So I have a feeling we're waking up Friday morning, the 21st. And we're all going to go, what happened? What changed? What happened with this bank? What happened with that? Apparently, or so I've just been informed, there's talk of like FTX and trying to, or I guess suggesting that they're going to venture into trying to come back in the second quarter of this year, and that a lot of the money that they lost is like being recouped. Okay, so obviously we'll wait and see what happens with that. But to me, that's just like shocking that something like that can happen, considering some of the other other dominoes that have fallen since some of the FTX things. But I think that that's kind of reminiscent of what we're going to see with news, right? Mercury retrograde about finances and things coming back or returning that we didn't think was possible. So watch for what's happening right around that time. I'm very curious about Mercury retrograding at 15 degrees. I'm not sure if you guys are aware of this, but 15 degrees of the fixed signs are very pivotal degrees in astrology because they represent the halfway point, right, of the fixed sign. So fixed signs are like, nope, I'm not moving, I'm not budging. But as soon as something hits 15 degrees, it's like the wheel of the chart turns. We will also have an eclipse on May 5th that's going to be polar opposite to this. So guys, you have to pay attention because the writing's going to be on the wall with how we can make moves financially or better prepare financially or move money around or, you know, buy supplies or make decisions about where we're banking, how we're banking before the shit hits the fan with the eclipse at the beginning of May. So obviously be careful with whose advice you buy, but I would pay attention to what's going on because we're going to start to get insight that there are some things that are brewing that we were not aware of. And it may even just be about the changes in the financial systems that are coming all together and that we're kind of going to be given more information about that. I think this can also be with the moon conjunct Mercury retrograde, changing our emotions, changing our mind, money moving in different directions. You know, Mercury is systems networks. So watch for banking failures, major news about banks changing their systems, changes in regards to how we spend money, applications that might be down, certain trading platforms that also might be improving or upgrading or having issues as well, and fluctuations in the markets and the financial system. So pretty much all of the 21st on Friday is hectic because there is a lot of energy that's kind of moving throughout the sign of Taurus. So I really advise you to know where Taurus is in your chart because that's where there's going to be some things that are going to be kind of all over the place. And this Mercury retrograde will retrograde from 15 degrees of Taurus all the way back to 5 degrees of Taurus. And it'll be taking place pretty much from, you know, let's say, you know, right around the 21st all the way through the 14th of May. So we've been in the shadow actually for the first, you know, couple days of April, the first like week or so. And it'll go direct next month in about a month. Okay. But in my opinion, yeah, 15 degrees of a fixed sign is where we see change. I'm so curious to see what happens with that Taurus stellium in the sky, because on one hand, it has the ability for massive physical change, growth, development, lots of new opportunities for resources as well. So I'm very excited for that. And then that's going to take us into later in the day on the 21st. Obviously, as Mercury is retrograding, it's coming into a sextile also with Mars, okay? And the moon will be hovering around Uranus. So I can see how there's like some emotional destabilizing, and then Mercury sextiles Mars, and it's like, okay, what do we do? What do we protect? And Taurus can be about money and resources and land, and like Cancer can literally be about things in regards to property. I've been saying all along that I'm anticipating some wild changes this spring and this summer with the housing market. And I think that this is probably, we're on the precipice of this now. Lots of stuff coming out in the news talking about, you know, like we're seeing some turmoil with, you know, developers and you know, massive companies that own tons and tons of like rental properties that are now starting to have issues and potentially be facing defaulting on mortgages. That's also going to have some issues in regards to the rest of the financial institutions. You know, I'm wondering, are we going to have issues with banks going, we're not loaning money, we're not giving loans for things right now, not just because of interest rates, but I think we're going to see this also with cars and vehicles. We'll see. We'll see what happens. And then we wake up on the 22nd. So this will then be Saturday. And as we're waking up, the moon has just left the sign of Taurus, and now it's moving into Gemini. Okay, so off the bat, we've got the moon trine Pluto, feeling emotionally capable, learning how to communicate, express, and share, feeling very emotionally empowered, right? Because we're kind of more tuned into our goals and we're more so connected with others, networks, and groups of people. As the moon continues to go through Gemini, it's going to come into a square with Saturn. So there can be some issues in terms of, you yeah, we're feeling very empowered, but we're scared to have conversations, or we're scared to share, or we're not sure if the timing is right yet. Really just lean into that moon trine Pluto and be optimistic about the changes in the future and the ability that you can change your mind about things if you'd like to change your mind. Then we're going to start to see, with that moon being in Gemini, that there's so much more focus on Mercury. So for, Saturday, Sunday, these transits through Gemini are really pointing back to what's going on with Mercury's retrograde. So I think we're really feeling the effects of Mercury's retrograde as the moon makes this ingress. And then we're going to see Mercury going retrograde, sextiling Mars. So it's a lot of how are we rethinking our values, and where is that helping us change direction with our family, where we're living, what we emotionally protect. I mean, what I love about the end of April, beginning of May, is it's like a real opportunity for everybody to really get their values in check, to like really reassess things and go, do I really value this thing that I thought I once valued, right? Can I make changes in, what I'm prioritizing, or what it is that I feel that I need, or what I am kind of prioritizing and investing time or energy or money into, and like where are my emotions pointing me in the direction of what I should be focusing on, right? So if you guys are emotionally avoidant this week, it's going to be really difficult, but if you're leaning into what your feelings are telling you, it's going to help navigate and help you make better decisions. So this is going to be interesting to see Mercury sextile Mars, because Mercury is the mind, right? It's how we relay information. And that sextile to Mars is going to go, okay, how do we move things around and make it easier to put ourselves in a position to buy a house, or to be able to change jobs, or to be able to spend more time with family. And that's really what these two signs, Taurus and Cancer, are also all about, right? So there's some support here. And then we're going to see the sun coming into contact, coming into conjunction the next day, actually with the North Node. So that's really the only aspect you're seeing on the 22nd, is just the moon trine Pluto, moon square Saturn, really feeling the feels of that Mercury retrograde. And then that takes us into Sunday the 23rd. And we're waking up on the 23rd in the morning, and we're immediately feeling the moon Gemini connection. Moon conjunct Venus in Gemini. So this is like communicating, sharing, being very, clear verbally with what we love, what we need. I love this energy. I think it's so lovely during Taurus season to see any positive aspects with Venus, because Venus is the ruler of Taurus. It wants love and peace and harmony. And it's also the North Node. So seeing that aspect kind of play out, Venus has made her way out of the square with Saturn in the weeks ahead. Yes, she's going to square with Neptune, but she's kind of in this sweet spot right now. And as the moon and Venus come into connection, it is sextiling Chiron. So we're able to feel like we can sit down, have conversations, communicate, kind of clear things up, be able to share how we're feeling with other people. And it's probably as a result of having made some changes in our values, right? Because now we've got Mercury that's in, a Venus sign. We've got Venus in a Mercury sign. So we've got yet some more mutual reception taking place here. And then the sun conjunct the North Node. And in the sign of Taurus, it's I want this. I possess this. I want to have this thing. I want to have this particular job. I value this particular person or this relationship, or, just being very clear. And it's all going to be so important to communicate that, because it's going to be taking place at 3 degrees on Sunday. So you may have to say, yes, I want to buy this thing. Yes, I want to have this relationship. Really show up for this, guys, because this is an amazing opportunity to really, I think, smooth over where there has been some communication issues recently. During Mercury retrogrades, we really benefit by slowing down and taking the time to read the fine print, to reflect on conversations we've had, or reflect on things that we've done in the past. And if we need to go back to something, correct it. If we need to reach out to somebody and, extend that olive branch, we do it, right? So you'll be in the midst of that Mercury retrograde. Like I said, it's going to be playing out clear until next month. We will also see a cazimi, and that'll be the halfway point. We're not coming up to that anytime soon. That'll be more next week. But I think that with the North Node and the Sun in conjunction, focus on what it is that you physically want. And then once you've made your decision in the midst of this Mercury retrograde, then when the cazimi happens, which will be I believe at 11 degrees. Yeah, so it's going to be like right around May 1st, May 2nd. Then you can go, okay, now I'm aware of it, right? But we're still in between eclipses. That's the thing. So there's going to be a lot of wonky energy. Listen to those emotions. That's the best advice I can give you guys, right? And now that the North Node and the Sun and also Mercury and Uranus are all in Taurus, such a good time to ground out your energy. I've been doing some research looking into like grounding mats. I know some of you guys have done that. I like working with crystals, but I'm also trying to find other ways to use physical things to kind of shield from like weird electromagnetic stuff or like EMF stuff. So I'm kind of experimenting with some of that and how it has an effect on me physically, just food for thought. And also just different crystals and jewelry things that I'm using to also kind of protect me a little bit more energetically. So I'm seeing it literally happening in my life. But I'm curious to see how it plays out for you guys and where this retrograde is. Really maybe go and take a look at the Mercury retrograde video that I made, because on the 5th, when we have this eclipse that's going to be in Scorpio, it's going to be at 14 degrees. Okay, so it's going to be in opposition to right around the place that the retrograde started. So you guys have some working time here of roughly 2 weeks before we start to see the fallout that's going to happen, because we know whenever there's lunar eclipses, that's where we feel lots of big emotional shifts and purges, honestly, in the sign of Scorpio, and crisis. And Scorpio is always the catalyst for change. So we see some kind of like life or death situation or a sudden ending or something suddenly shift. And that's very much the key to this axis in Scorpio and Taurus anyway, but you're going to get all of the breadcrumbing from Taurus right now about the physical financial changes you need to make to be better prepared for this eclipse at the beginning of May. Please let me know your comments. I would love to hear how this is playing out for you. Is it your birthday? If it is, happy birthday right around the time of a solar eclipse. So happy birthday to all of my April Tauruses. I'm excited to see what plays out this week. I'll check in with you guys. I've got another video coming out Tuesday. We're going to talk all about the lunar eclipse in Scorpio and some of my predictions for that. If you guys like my channel, you like my content, you can support me in the following ways. Just simply leave me a comment, give me a thumbs up, make sure you're subscribed. Any interaction with the channel helps the channel grow. Consider sending the video to a friend or somebody who would benefit from my predictions. I also have memberships, several different levels. So if you guys want to support my content, you like my long format, you like my horoscopes and the other videos, and you want to see more, your guys' donations or joining my memberships make it possible for me to do this full time. I also have courses on my website for beginners, tarot, and astrology, or you can book a personalized reading with me. Click on my links below by going to my website at beyondtheveiledtarot.com. You guys can also join me here on Friday evenings, 5 p.m. Pacific time, 8 p.m. Eastern time. I am here. We alternate every other Friday between tarot and astrology. This Friday, I'm going to post the link. We are going to be having astrology, so catch me there, and I'm excited to see what's kind of playing out with that. Otherwise, until next time, I will see all of you guys very soon. Please enjoy the rest of your weekend. Take care.